Hello and welcome to the Armin Show podcast, in the scene live. We do it everywhere. There's no limitation to what we can do on this show. Like, subscribe, science, learning. You want more, you get it. Glad to have you on this one. We had this guest here, episode 160. Do you recall Rebecca Faith Lawson? She joins on this one. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
It's super to have you in video edition. Last time it was just audio, limitations of the world. We are on, for presence purposes, Playa Vista Beach. Do you like beaches? What are your thoughts in the moment?
Love the beach. It's cold to be on the West Coast. Normally I'm on the East Coast in Florida. And it's just nice to check out what people are up to over here.
There's a lot of liveliness. It's packed. It's not as packed as some other beaches. You have to make these decisions on where to go in life. Key moments. If you pick the wrong things in a busy area, that may take up all of your day. Whereas in a place that's less busy, more relaxed, peaceful. That's why some people are now in Montana that never would have been in Montana previously. Now on this one, I have a few topics I wrote down, but also things that come to my mind. Want to go over some. Now, before we do that, Rebecca, tell us some things about Rebecca Faith Lawson in 2022, where you're currently at, so people can know.
Okay, I am Rebecca Lawson. I'm 27 years old, and I live in Sarasota, Florida. I am currently finishing my degree in education. I love working with kids. I am teaching kids all summer water sports, water safety, kayaking, fishing, paddleboarding, and I also model. I model for an agency in Orlando called Modern Muse, and so I book different jobs out there, and it's so much fun. So I love kids, and I love to model.
Now, this is a wonderful thing. You continue to do it. You were doing it before. It's nice to have consistency in form. That's a beautiful thing. Presence is key. Now, one thing that comes to mind is, what are some items that you value in existence? As a helicopter goes by, it's very action-packed here. What are some things you value in existence at this time? What are you trying to represent as a person, May 2022?
I think being authentic is really great. I think doing things that you feel passionate about, regardless of how other people may perceive that, just being true to yourself is so good, and it will just lead you on the direction to success. I think personal success, whether that looks like success to other people, it will make you happy. And I think putting God first in everything is ultimately what it's all about. And when you're focused really on that, that's what's going to fulfill you.
Now, I want to go into some topics here, different ones, and I want you to bring your perspective on it. These have come across my mind or in discussion in recent days, and I'm just going to throw them out there.
Sure.
First one, self-doubt, people doubting themselves, comparing themselves with others. What's the framework they can have to avoid that? Is it inevitable, or can someone clear that away?
I think that self-doubt comes from possibly like comparing yourself to other people. I think that we as humans, we're all having a human experience, and speaking life is super important. Any sort of, discouragement, negativity, it's unneeded. And if you're going to get that from people, you don't need to listen to that. And I think you need to find yourself people who are just going to build you up and help you grow. And that doesn't mean giving you like false words. It just means challenging you to be the best person that you can be.
Do you have anybody at this time who challenges you to be the best person you can be? And how did you find them? Where can people find these people?
I think that, you meet a lot of people, and you can discern who is kind of on your team and who isn't. And I personally have most of my friends from church, really. My small group in Sarasota, Florida, I've met amazing girls. They're just amazing. So I think that when you're following God, you have a relationship with yourself and other people that's different than when you're not following God. You're not doing things, hopefully not as you're wanting to do well to other people, rather than completely caught up in selfish motives. And having people around like that who are thinking bigger picture and know that speaking life to you glorifies God. Personally, those are the kind of people I want to be around.
We always find our category of individuals that we most mesh with, similar beliefs and values. This is what lasts a long time. It can't just be about more surface traits. Those will only last a short bit, like, we both like snowboarding. That's not likely to really blossom into a long extended connection unless it's really big on snowboarding. Now, God is a presence here and a theme. How are you supporting God and or believing in him day to day?
I think being in the Word is the most important, because without being in the Word, you lose sight of how real that is. And when you have the Word inside of you, you meditate on it and you live your life from those beliefs. And that's like what's going to fill your mind. It's not going to be people's thoughts. It's not going to be the social media. It's not going to be stuff you hear in a movie that's being the first to your heart and your mind. It's going to be the Word of God. And I think that is having a relationship with God and then applying the things in your life and acting out how you are with people based off of those beliefs is how you're honoring God.
Now, have you ever struggled with this? And also, what are some key items that come with that? Does that give you calmness? What does that give you?
It gives me security. It gives me grounding. I know who I am. I'm not searching elsewhere and trying to identify myself with all these things that the world has to offer. I'm like, I realize that I'm a human. I believe God created me. I think that he wants me to put him first, and that's going to give me, fulfillment. It's going to give me value. I'm striving to basically become more like the Word of God instructs you to be. You're growing in that way. And that's where my heart and my focus is, rather than me trying to be just something, the next big thing maybe in the world. And how I affect people, that's awesome. I don't need to focus on so many things. It's like God will work through me the way he wants to.
It just fits that way.
Yeah, you let go and you have faith and believe that what you're doing in life, if you're pleasing God and you're honoring him with your actions and what you're pursuing, he's going to bless that, and whatever form that is, he's in control, and the circumstances around you are in one way or another shaping you.
Now, completely switching things up here. Time.
Mm-hmm.
Time is something we live through. We can compare ourselves to a past version of ourselves in time.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done this in some forms, and what kind of value can someone get from looking at 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, their exact self, their current self? How do you compare? How do you see growth? What do you look for? What are some key things to look for to see, I got somewhere?
Do you mean growth when you're following the Word of God, or growth in a worldly sense?
Worldly sense in this one.
A worldly sense, perhaps you can grow in the world, and you can also grow as a Christian.
Okay. And
one has value for this world, and when you grow as a believer in God, that's eternal value, because I believe we all have a soul, and we're going somewhere after life. And so where that is dependent on what you're following. So if you're following the world, I don't know if there's much hope for that, eternally. If you're following God, there's hope for that eternally.
One seems more short-term in the description, and one seems more bigger picture and understanding.
Yeah, and the Word of God instructs to not place your pursuits in your heart on things of this world, but place them on things of heaven. And so it's kind of it's an interesting mindset, because you value this, as a Christian, you value this life. Yes, but you don't get caught up in it. You understand it for what it is, but you glorify God and you're putting him first. It's different than just being this is it.
Does this relate with relationships where it's good to put someone else first in some form, or else it can't function because you're always starting with you and then just giving people scraps in a way? What about people relationships? Does that relate?
I think that if you're a believer, you're following God, your relationships will reflect your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I see. So it supersedes it. It's always on top.
Yeah, because if you're always putting God first, you're always going to be treating people the right way. if you're putting yourself first, if you are your own God and you're like, I'm doing everything that benefits me and pleases me, you're going to treat people differently because you're going to be most likely treating them ultimately from like more of a selfish heart rather than checking yourself with God first.
Selfish is not going to work right. It's kind of off-putting. It pushes people away because they're like, oh, I'm not even being considered in a form. Mm-hmm. You want consideration and such.
And you're not going to be perfect as a believer. You're not going to be, it's a work in progress, you know, it's called like sanctification. And you're growing, but I don't know if you really become perfect until you reach afterlife.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Perfection. I've talked about this a few times. Little switcheroo here. Is it worth it looking to something to be perfection in a part of your life? Or is that a waste of effort and just look to try and play like a 5-year-old does? How much should we be focused on something being structurally stuck like a piece of concrete? We build something perfect, amazing? Or we're always trying things and always like in this chaos-wide state? Where can someone be so that they can feel comfortable? Or is that a personality-based thing?
I mean, if I'm understanding correctly, I think focus, whatever you value, focus on, and that thing is going to grow in your life. You know, whatever that is, that, you know, your passions or whatever, if that's what you're talking about. Like if you're trying to do a million different things, you have to narrow it down to at least just like certain things and know what you want to put your time, your mental energy, and place your time doing, so those things can actually come to fruition.
Now, in the current world, we have a lot of noise, let's say, on the internet or in public. Wherever you go, there's a lot of voices being thrown in at you. How do you put aside potential noise and not take into advertising people's influences, what somebody would want you to be, maybe it's not your thing? Is it only self-esteem? Can someone without self-esteem do it? What's the barrier?
I think that you're going to hear voices, especially like when you're, you know, maybe even like coming out of high school, like you're going to hear a lot of things, and perhaps like you're still discovering who you are. So you're probably going to experiment with different maybe sides of you or interests or different things until you kind of feel it sits right. But if it aligns with what God would want you to do and it also feels right for you, like you should pursue that. You know, it's not, I don't think you should do things just because other people want you to be a certain way or want you to pursue a certain thing. Like if it needs to align with like your own personal talents and gifts, and also be honoring to God.
Now, switcheroo once again, because this is all about transitional moves. We are in California. You're in Florida. Biggest shifts. Do you see any big differences? This is one coast. You're on the other coast. Can we compare the two?
Well, I mean, honestly, like I'm from Sarasota, so Sarasota has a lot of, it's just an older community, and I know it's growing, but just being in California, I'm just like, wow, like there's just so many young people everywhere, and like that's just something, I know it's like pretty, you know, straightforward, but that is a huge difference I noticed just being the type of people that I'm around. And it's great to be around people your own age, and it's just like healthy and vibrant, and I just appreciate that. I like that. I think here it's a bit more of like a scene. People might be like looking at you and like wondering like maybe who you are, or like, you know, are you a big influencer or like whatever, you know. They're kind of like curious here because it seems like there is such a culture of people who are either actors or models, or you know what I mean, that are everyone's doing something here, whereas in Florida it seems a little bit more like, you know, just more low-key, more normal. You know, people are just people not in the front of the camera or in front of the world doing things, so that's definitely a difference. And yeah, I mean, I love being in California for a lot of reasons. It's just different. It's nice to switch things up. So
I'm a proud representative of California, by the way, here in the wonderful state that is very lively, and there's Northern California and Southern, and she's on the other coast, and we've both been in New York, but I've only been there once, and she's been there many more times. Now, in a worldly sense, more globally, what are we missing as people at this time? What is the collective missing? It could be a light thing. It could be a heavier thing. What are our fellow people? What could we be working on as a collective that might be missing?
Yeah, definitely hiking. More people need to do hiking.
Shout outs to that. I just want to mention hiking has happened. It's a very good thing.
Just joking. Yeah, no, of course. Everyone hikes here, it seems.
That's true. There's a lot of hiking going on.
I love it. I'm just joking. So
it's really healthy, by the way. I've talked to a lot of authors. They're scientists, but each one talks about walking.
More people need to drink green juice and just get out and get more sun.
It makes a big difference. This vitamin D is very valuable. Some places that don't have it, Seattle, Scotland, other places, they're struggling. Then they wait till the sun time just to have that kind of joy.
Yeah. No, but on a more serious note, I think that, I feel everywhere in the world it's natural in a way because we are fallen people and I think that people set their minds on things of this earth and that's it. And there's a lot more to it. And I truly believe we are people who have souls and we need to connect. And if we don't have, God in our heart, if we don't believe in God, it's ask God, hey, God, if you're real, give me that faith, give me that sight. Let me see who you are. And it's faith. It's it's not like Jesus was just a man and he came up and he was I had a revelation from God and I experienced this myself, and that's what a lot of people will do all throughout history. There'll be one man and he'll come out and say this thing, this very strong statement that he's God or something. And anyway, Jesus was not that. He had 12 disciples and when he died on the cross, he rose again. And he, Mary Magdalene went to his tomb and she was the first to report that he was not there. And if the Bible was trying to manipulate people, it wouldn't have a woman telling society about how Jesus was not there anymore because women weren't as respected in society back then. And the Bible was trying to manipulate, they would have a man going around society telling people that. Anyway, so it was a woman, and then the 12 disciples all they reported we have all seen and talked with Jesus. He's here, he's in a different form, but we have spoken with him. And then Paul was not a disciple, but he was on the road to Damascus, and he persecuted Christians, and he was a real person just like you and me, Paul, and he was on a horse, and he basically was Jesus appeared to him in his own way, and he was completely changed. He was that doesn't happen, something very, very dramatic would happen for a man who was so passionate and would kill Christians to completely 360 and be I encountered Jesus. There's no denying this, and I have to tell everybody about this. This is insane. This is unreal. I can't believe it, And so he went off and he started preaching the word of God, preaching what he encountered, encouraging churches, and dying. People persecuted Paul. They're trying to kill him. They boiled him in oil. He didn't die. He lived even after that, and eventually he died. But it's not that. It's you can't calculate Christianity. You can't calculate Jesus. You can't be well, do ABC plus D, F, G. You know what I mean? You can't calculate it in your head. It's faith. It's okay, you take things into account. It's not blind faith. Take things into account. You take what the word of God says, something that has never been never been extinguished from the earth. It's that powerful, obviously. And you think about humanity did come from somewhere, and whether you want to believe in apes, it's pretty hard to have faith in that we evolved from apes, yet apes still exist. Well, why didn't they evolve? Or poof, everything was here, the Big Bang Theory. We're a bit more we're very, very intricate. Everything on this earth is very, very created intentionally. The sun, if it was closer or farther away, this earth wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be able to have life on this earth if that sun was any farther away or closer or whatever it is. Everything is very intentional, and yes, it might not all make sense logically like Jesus, but it requires faith for a reason, and it's, if you don't have it, ask God for it.
I want to point out that sun, super duper. I have to add that in there. It's without that, the beach and all things would not be enlivened as they are. Everybody with the people and whatnot. That is you've got the whole there, and the description. And here's one thing you just made me think of also. This will be my closing question to you.
Okay.
On the topic of narrative, okay? How compelling can narrative be? What does it take to make compelling narrative or story so that others can take it from you? What are some of the features that are necessary?
What makes a story compelling?
Yes.
I feel like that's a question better for you. I feel like you would answer that really well.
Okay, we're turning around on that one. So I will just say, okay, maybe after we'll get a little feedback. I would say, in my thoughts, it is how much you believe in it. The elements of it that connect with some parts of your reality, it has to have some link to it. And sometimes it's the passion from within. People can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, you can't have like if you think about a lot of speakers, without that compelling, like, hey man, I believe in this, you wouldn't believe in this, and you're in the audience, right?
Right.
So it'd be lost. So there's that.
That's awesome. That's true. Yeah.
You gotta have the details and whatnot.
Yeah.
Would you agree with these things? Thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you really strongly believe in something, then another person is gonna maybe consider it. Absolutely. But if you don't, then it's like, well, why should they? It's so silly. I mean, it's logical. It's like, if someone really believes in something, you are like, well, why do they believe in that so strongly? And they consider it.
It could be a potential verse, I'm not sure, but the cup runneth over. You fill it and it runneth over because your cup full, right? It passes on to others.
Mm-hmm.
That might be related to that. Rebecca, in our limited time frame, I would like to thank you for having joined on this episode, discussing a few topics on this really cool setting, which I never have a background and an airplane, which you can't see, things like that. Thank you for rejoining.
Yeah, thank you so much.
160 to the 300s, Rebecca Faith Lawson.
Thank you.
And we are out.